I think once we continue to educate ourselves, continue to see the power of these dividend paying whole life contracts, and that are private, by the way. I just wanted to add that too. We're not we're not dealing with anything the government has control over. This is a private contracting situation. And so I don't know if I answered your question, but
In so many ways. I wish you could see all the notes that I'm writing down. I've written down at least three things, but I'll start with this one. You said it earlier when you were talking about having access to capital from owning these policies with these mutual life insurance companies. It just needs to be underlined. It doesn't matter what your employment status is. You just lost your job. I mean, that happens. I've had some recent conversations, Nicole. People lost jobs. What a beautiful thing. Not that part, but the part that, well, if they already had policies where they have access to capital, that is so beautiful to help weather those types of storms in life, right? So it doesn't matter what your employment status is. Once you already own that policy, it's a private piece of property. Yeah, it's a contract that you just privately own. And it doesn't matter what your credit score happens to be that day, right? All those other traditional factors that are barriers between us and capital. When you're becoming your own banker and you own these policies and you're proactively, intentionally building capital there, the questions are, how much of what's available do you want us to send to you? And do you want a check in the mail or a direct deposit to your bank account on file? Well, send me the money, please. Okay, so what I would say, especially right there when Nicole started talking about term and PUAs and base, if you're early on in your infinite banking exposure, and that just felt like her unloading a dump truck on you, it's kind of because she's knowledgeable and she's obviously, you are, I'm trying to talk to the people and talk to you at the same time here at this point, Nicole. It did feel like a dump truck load because that's just her opening up a bit of her mind in the things that we are considering when we're helping people, like that family that you were just talking about. They had these long lifetime goals. They knew what that death benefit should be for them. And that also is ignored so often, Nicole. Just because Nelson said in the book that we're emphasizing access to capital, we're still also doing it with whole life insurance, and whole life insurance comes with a guaranteed death benefit. So you get to have both. You don't have to pick or choose. Yes, we're going to emphasize for a significant cash value, right, from the start, almost always, because we do have, the taxes to pay or whatever. Like you said, that family, well, we've got this short-term goal that's on our radar for the next 12 months, but we also want this policy to accomplish this amount of death benefit for us. And when you're working with somebody like Nicole, you get both. You don't have to pick and choose. You get both. You can have the death benefit that is appropriate for you on that properly structured policy, and at the same time, you can be accomplishing goals with this capital that you have access to over the next 12 months. You get to do both. And that doesn't also negate that there's a capitalization phase, but a policy can be structured for both your use over your short-term plans over the next 12 months, and they're playing into your lifetime goals. So what I was wanting to say is when Nicole opened up her mind to you there, and term and MEX and those types of things are brand new to you. Of course, she already held up the book. Mine's right over here, just out of reach. If you haven't read the Becoming Your Own Banker book, read the Becoming Your Own Banker book. And I do have a series on my channel where I've built out an encyclomedia, I call it, Nicole, because I'm young or old enough or whatever you want to say to remember my mom told me when I had a question, I would go to the encyclopedia and I could look up something. All right, so this was before I had a cell phone in my pocket and those types of things, and it was a great resource. So I created this encyclomedia series where I cover things like term, MEC, base, policy splits, all that kind of stuff. So I would encourage people, check that out there, see if that's not valuable to you after you got in the Becoming Your Own Banker book as well, so that you have that foundation. So.
can I jump in? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
please. No, please, go.
I've got like, okay. You talking about having both, right? Like,
Yes.
and I want to just put in there, it is have your cake and eat it too, because when you see the power of this and you're planning for retirement, you can, I know you hate that word. I do too. I'm sorry. When you're planning for your passive income years at that time, you can have both. I can't tell you how many people I know that are in that passive income time of their life. I even have a couple of friends that have retired at this point, and I'm just like, I'm still raising kids. I'm like, um, so how many times have you heard the joke, ha ha ha, I'm spending my kids' inheritance, right? And you have people in those passive income years and they're just, they're going on cruises, they're doing their thing. And it's become this just joke in our society, right? Like, I've heard it a bunch. I've seen memes on social media, and you can have both. When you have your own system of policies, like, yes, you can have those passive income years and still leave behind an inheritance to your children and your legacy. You can leave behind legacy. So I wanted to just put that in there also, to just, we've got to change the way we think about these things and what's been put on us by society. What has been the motivation of this structure in our society that does not think generationally anymore? So realize that was propaganda that was put on us. This was not the mindset of people in America 150 years ago. Probably even 100 years ago, people were still thinking, how do I set up so that I am the ceiling, I'm the floor for my kids. Like, I'm ground floor, and then they're just going to keep building on top, on top. I traveled to other nations, and I can just say that is not the case in other nations. Multi-general households are not a rarity, they are commonplace. Other nations don't have senior housing all over the place. Like, you don't send your aging parents away somewhere, like you bring them in. And I would have to say my mindset, just because of the cultural experiences I've had in other parts of the world, my mindset is more that. And I think that's been lost. When you homeschool, I know in regular public school that I grew up in, hated history. I thought it was the worst class ever. I start homeschooling, and history is the best subject ever. I'm just like, I love it. And so when you start to get exposed to real history, not just memorizing dates and places, but when you start researching history, it is so exciting. So I'll encourage you in that. And then just one other thing I wanted to get in there, and I know we've talked for quite a while now. So my husband's father died in October of just last year, just a few months ago. And he was talking to his mom, and he was kind of talking to her about the infinite banking concept. And she said, oh, my grandmother, so my husband's great grandmother, had this. And, they were dirt floor poor. Are you in North or South Carolina?
North.
North. I think they're South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, but literally didn't have indoor plumbing. I mean, even in the 80s and 90s, like, no money. But she had these life insurance policies, and she took them out on all of her children. And not to talk ill, but let's just say if one of her children would get into trouble, she would call her insurance agent and say, I need a loan from this policy to go bail out, whatever kid. But that wasn't taught to the next gen. And I don't even know that she understood the power, but she had it. This is not new. right? This concept, these things that have been written in the insurance contracts is not something new. It's something we've lost that has been rediscovered, and now we can start implementing. So I just thought that little nugget, like, what? Your great grandmother had policies on her kids and would like utilize it, like she was using it, taking loans, paying back, doing like that was her banking system. It said she hated banks. She never had a bank account, which is almost impossible in today's world. But she never had a bank account. When they were cleaning out her house after she passed away, she literally sewed a zipper in her mattress. And this is a woman who, I mean, poor. Dawn was like, how'd she end up with all this money? Like she had money in her mattress, like a lot of money in her mattress, and still had these life insurance policies. So I just thought that was a beautiful story. It just popped into my head when you were talking, and I'm like, so I just want to say to people out there that are just, what is this newfangled thing? Like this is just the next get rich quick scheme or whatever. Nelson would say it's not get rich quick, it's get rich slow, but it has been around. So much, I think, of our rich culture from before, let's just say 150 years ago, 100 years ago, has just been washed away. It's been just taken from us, really taken from us, as propaganda has seeped in, and we've been told what to think and what to do, and how to steward money, which is not to our best benefit. So I would say if you're one of those people who's waking up to those kind of ideas, whether you be a homeschooler that has discovered the love of history and now you study and teach your children real history, or just, I think a lot of people have started waking up over the last 4 or 5 years to the lies that we've believed. And I know if you watch any Nelson videos on YouTube, it plays in my head. It's like lies, 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 just Alabama accent, lies, 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 So let me encourage your listeners, my listeners, whoever may be watching this, just stop believing the lies. Like, come into the truth. Come into the truth. There is something so powerful here, and you really can set up yourself, your family, for the generations to come, a legacy you can leave behind, and achieve your dreams today. You can have them both.
That's a pretty good impersonation, Nicole, of Nelson talking about the lies. That was good. I like that. There's so much there. Yeah, so many things. I've written down so many things, and now I'm still even thinking so many new things because of that story. I think I break down infinite banking into the two parts that I think that it is at the big level, the high level, and that's product and process. We just spent a good bit of time talking about some process, like the process of putting money in a mattress. That's capitalizing. I think there's a better place now, right, than just a mattress. When you know about infinite banking, there's a more ideal product. But yeah, the product has an immense history, long history. It predates you, me, it predates both of us combined. We combine our ages. Whole life insurance has been around a long, long time, and people did know that, and people did own that, and people did other things. I am from a rural place in North Carolina where, in the small county where I live, land would have been a way that a generation maybe would have facilitated handing something off to the next generation. Maybe they couldn't give them, much money or just whatever else, but maybe they could give them some land, right? But then you see that doesn't necessarily go to the next generation, and for different reasons, right? Because it's physical land and there's only so much of it, or maybe the mindset didn't change. And that's why I want to reiterate that product versus process. That mentality, that process of being on that cruise ship, like you were saying, spending your children's inheritance, I don't like that. I'll say that I don't like it. Now, if you've ever said that, listener, that doesn't mean I don't like you, but I don't like that. I detest that like I detest retirement, right? Like I eschew it like the evil that it is in my mind. I hate it. So I'm not coming at the people, but I don't think that's an advantageous mindset. I think there is a better mindset to adopt. And that's where I'm at, and that's why I encourage people to, yes, be that generation that leaves an inheritance to your children's children. Oh, that's such a good story. You brought up Nelson. Here's what I'll say about Nelson as it concerns whole life insurance. Because again, just like I said, whole life insurance has been around longer than you, Nicole, longer than me. It's been around longer than Nelson. But here's what Nelson did that nobody else did. We could talk about the historical people that we either personally know, like somebody's great-great-grandmother or whatever, right? Or we could talk about Walt Disney, or we could talk about Miss Christopher or whoever else that's owned life insurance and used policy loans. What Nelson did was he brought the process to bear. He brought scale and systemization and a codification of, okay, well, if you do think long range and you're not afraid to capitalize and you quit doing business with banks and you yourself learn to become and be an honest banker, and then if you keep rethinking your thinking through this process of becoming your own banker, game changer. From that first generation, it never has to have that same, there won't be that same starting point. You know, it's always going to be scaled. It's always going to be scaled from. So that's what Nelson brought. And that's why I love that you, like I, go back there when it comes to the origination of becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept. That was Nelson's contribution, you know, and I believe that our contribution then is we're bearing, you know, that good news to people saying, well, you can be your own banker too, right? Beautiful. All right, let me go back to, I probably forgot half of the things. You know, when I re-listened to this myself, I probably forgot half of the things that I would have loved to have commented on or asked you more, even in that little nugget right there. But let me go back to something else that you said, which was people tend to look at the first 10 years. And again, we've already covered that ground, right? Like when you latch onto this idea and you're getting a policy and you know that it can be built for the long range plans that you have and short range plans that you have all at once, there's still a tendency to look at the first 10 years. Here's what we don't know, right? Like we don't know when our last 10 years ends on this earth. But here's what I would prompt people to consider. Just do this mental exercise. I'm not saying don't look at the first 10 years. You should look at the first 10 years when you're going through a policy illustration with your professional that you're getting ready to buy this policy, you know, that they've structured for you. Of course you're going to look at the first 10 years. But I'm saying, if you could detach enough to look at the last 10 years, and you just pick a point in time, okay? You just pick a point in time and look at those years. You know, those years where that same $10,000, if I use that from our example earlier, is creating a multiple of itself. And oh, by the way, if that's the year that you took out, say, whatever you needed for that cruise. Let's still talk to the cruise people, Nicole. Let's say they've got this policy, right? Let alone a system of policies like this. And they book a cruise in whatever happens to be that last year that they're on this earth. And they used a tax-free access to capital to pay for a cruise. And let's say they choke on the steak. I mean, heaven forbid, right? I'm not saying that you should or that I want this. But I'm saying it's 100% of Americans graduate, right? 100% of us. That's the statistic. So if you're in that last year on that cruise that costs you nothing out of pocket, right, because of this policy that you own and that you have access to capital, and then you still yield a windfall to the next generation as well, it's just an incredible thing to think about. So all that to say, policies are the product when we're implementing this process that can help us accomplish goals over the next 12 months, help us facilitate supplementing passive income time of life, and still create legacy for the next generations. That's what I wanted to say. Compare the last 10 years, what you think might be the last 10 years versus the first 10 years. And if I said one more thing about policy structure, because I know we took a dive there for a minute and we already pointed people to the book, and I did promote my own encyclopedia series. I think it's good, but y'all let me know. You can watch, you can ask questions and give feedback and such. If a house is being built, it's got to have a substantial enough foundation, right, for whatever kind of square footage you're wanting to put up, right? And maybe there's this attachment of a sunroom or whatever. So I'm just saying it's not a perfect analogy perhaps, but a foundation exists on a house. Then you've got the house itself and whatever attachments and things could be these term riders and these other things. So maybe that's just a helpful analogy for people that are new in this process of knowing what whole life insurance is. It's a contract. And it can be built a certain way, just like a house could be built a certain way. But some things are going to be true if you want that thing to last. And a base, a strong foundation, it's just one of the tenets of building a good house, right? You and I would say it this way, right? There's a big difference between building a house on sand versus the rock, right? That's scriptural as well. Awesome. All right. Anything else? Anything you want to kick back to me again at this point? You've already said something about we've been talking for a long time. I refuse to look at the clock. I still have questions that I want to ask. Now, if you need to go, you can always tell me. But anything you'd like to add here, or can I ask another question?
I think you can ask another question.
Awesome. So you saw this concept, decided to immediately implement it, even though some of your policies, it sounds like, knowing what you know now, they were not optimally designed. They were not optimally structured, but you have them. So I just love to know anything, Nicole, about how you've used policies personally. And then I definitely want to be able to ask you about that immediate foray also into the professional side of this thing, because you decided to do both at the same time. That's how it struck you was, yes, I'm going to do this myself personally in my life, but I'm also going to go take my, my license exam and all this other stuff immediately as well. So, or maybe specifically, actually, Nicole, you saw this idea, you were inspired by this idea, you decided to go down this journey. Maybe what last reservations did you have? Second guessings, doubts, like right before, during, or after getting policies for yourself? And yeah, I still want to table the professional side, just personally. And yeah, tell me about that part.
Okay, so just a little bit more insight regarding me. Those who know me, it's like jump and then figure it out on the way down. Do I have a parachute on? Not sure. And another thing, if I feel the Lord has spoken to me about something, there's no question. I don't question it. It is okay. Yes, and I'm doing it. So
I started to say that earlier. I started to tease you. You definitely are not a Jonah, because you said that you felt led to do this professionally, and then you went out immediately. I was like, well, she's not a Jonah trying to jump on a boat, go the opposite direction or anything. Good for you.
which is funny, during our family reading time last night, that's the book the kids wanted to read, was the story of Jonah. So we talked about disobedience and not having, mercy and grace for people. So yeah, we had that discussion last night with our children. So wonderful. Awesome. Yeah, no, and my husband, on the other hand, he balances me out. So where I'm just the 110 miles an hour, point me in a direction. And if especially if it's like, this is the Lord, you're not going to stop me. Like, you're not going to stop me. So we both felt it was the Lord. So when I came home from that conference on Sunday night and we talked about it, he felt strongly like, no, this is the Lord. And so, yes.
So was he at the conference as well?
No, okay. I went with two girls, but like with our kids situation, yeah, no, we don't, the two of us don't get to go very often at all. So this was just me, and I took a couple of girlfriends with me. They enjoyed the conference, liked all the principles, but I ran with it. And yeah, that's kind of how I operate. I've been that way my whole life. So the way God designed you in your mother's womb, I think he just designed me that way. So yeah, I didn't have a lot of hesitation. I implemented a policy on myself right away. Then took out one on, at the time, I guess he was 21. I think he had just turned 21, my youngest biological child at the time. We first utilized a policy loan to pay off my husband's truck. So we had about 9 months worth of payments left on the truck. So we moved that debt into our banking system, paid off the truck, got the title to the truck, and then I just made the same payment I would make to the financing company. I just paid back the loan to, and it saved us. I was able to do it in 5 months. So instead of paying 9 months, we paid 5 months. And so that saved us, quite a bit of money, at least a couple of $1,000 just in that. And so we were like, okay, that worked. It was like, that was beneficial. So I started running numbers on our mortgage on our land here. So I knew what I needed to have in policies to be able to move that debt internal. And we were able to achieve that in October. So we paid off the bank for our mortgage. So we own our property free and clear. And
Congratulations.
thank you.
I can remember when you told me that.
Video. I was like encouraged, you need to do a video, take that amortization schedule and like burn it, and we do have like a fire pit outside. Just get the family around and say, we are no longer shackled to this bank anymore.
And for perpetuity, I mean, even, run the numbers of what we would have paid to, the financier and how much that's going to allow us to recapture and what kind of death benefit that's going to yield, because that's something that I've, just a quick interjection right here, and encouragement for you, Nicole, is I try to document regular life things for our children and for our grandchildren and beyond, right? Like I try to document stuff. That's a big purpose behind me even having a YouTube channel in general is, great grandkids are going to be able to watch Grandpa Jesse, right? That was weird for me to say because nobody says it yet. But then also, it's also inspiring to people like me, right? Or prospective clients as well to say, well, this is what we did. These are our results. This is what it can mean that's changed for us. Like you even just mentioned that word internal. We could talk about that, but keep going in your story. So you paid off the mortgage. I remember hearing about that over a phone call or a Zoom call. Congratulations again.
Yeah, so moved it externally, internally. Just the math on that is going to be, and we had 12 years left on the bank if I just paid what they said. And now in our structure, and we may even decide to get a little more aggressive now that we know, like every dollar we pay back, we have access to again, right? Unlike paying a bank, you pay that payment and that money is gone forever. Once you start recapturing things into your system, then you have access to that dollar again. So you might be a little more not anxious, but inspired to pay even more, which we're kind of doing because I'm like, oh, let me get this paid. But just the calculations of savings alone in moving it is like $30,000.
And don't discount the 12 years either, is what I would say. When anybody uses a policy loan to pay off anything, not only are you recapturing the actual dollars, but think about this. If you owe 12 years on a house, what is it that you owe? Yes, you owe the money, but money's just a medium of exchange. So what does it mean you actually owe? You owe someone else that's not in your family your future profitability, results, time. I mean, that one's huge. And now that 12 years that you were on the dotted line for, that's gone. That's not external anymore. Like, I love how you said that. That's not external anymore. That's in-house now. We keep that money. But also, we're not on anybody else's timeline now either. So strong, so powerful.
Right. Yeah. So that's been exciting. Another personal note, I have two policies on the son I mentioned earlier. And him and a friend of his are launching a business. Very exciting. I'm probably going to do a podcast thing with him on my channel for him to talk about. Even though he does not pay his policies, I pay his policies. So I control them. Him and his girlfriend right now, which we think this is the one, but they're both on board. I know they'll be implementing their own policies soon. They're both still pretty young, but so he took out his first policy loan and to get this business off the ground. So it's a brand. I guess I'll just give him a little plug. It's called See Tomorrow, SEE, like see tomorrow. And the branding is around suicide awareness. That he said really has plagued his generation. He's 23 now. He'll be 24 in May. And my oldest son actually was a victim of that suicide. So it has touched our family closely and has touched his heart, and sees what a plague it's been for his generation. And so he has a heart for that. So it's going to have to do with that. And I'm very proud of him. And they put in their first shirt order and took out a policy loan. And I drew up contracts for him and his friend that are doing this together. And they have a payback schedule. And anyway, it's just,
Please, 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 let me say it again like I did about the mortgage. Please document that. Take pictures with them, take pictures with the t-shirts, take videos so that you can compile a documentary style. I'm telling you, even if you just keep it in-house, but again, it's just another example for everybody else as well that's our clients already or prospective clients of ours. This is the infinite banking concept. Like, this is my first time hearing about your 23-year-old son and the business idea and the brand and all these different things. But
well, it's just started. I mean, like, he just took the loan a month ago, and the shirts are being made. So yeah,
right, and I'm selfishly asking you to document that, because not even just for me, like, I would like to see whatever information you would put out there about this brand and business and idea of your sons. But I have sons, and I'm going to want my sons to be inspired by other people, right, that are implementing this concept intergenerationally. So I'm not being selfless by asking this. So document it. Awesome. Awesome. All right, so that's some of the personal side, okay? But you did launch into the professional side at the same time, went out and took your exam immediately. So just tell me anything that you can or that you like or that sticks out in your mind when it came to, okay, it's one thing to go out and get a license, right, over a weekend to have an insurance license in your state. But it's completely different to, and we've got friends, that are wearing multiple hats. Like, maybe they already started out in life insurance in a traditional way, then they were exposed to infinite banking. Some people, it's completely opposite. They start right in on infinite banking, particularly, exclusively, etc. So just tell us a bit maybe about that beginning of your professional journey.
Yeah, so I would say, even though it was kind of with not the most optimal strategies and process in place, I struggled a little because I was so used to ministry, and I felt like, okay, now I'm in business, and I didn't have a grasp on really bringing the two together. And so I think it was last year that it really clicked, and the Lord just was like, this is your ministry, so I was like, oh, okay. So um
Because business is a ministry. You're ministering to the needs of other people with your goods, with your service and everything.
yeah, so jumping from ministry, homeschool mom, grandma, just taking care of things at the house, so many years of doing that. And I had little things like doing the real estate, and I'm not one who sits still very well, so I'm always doing something, and involved in something, running something, overseeing something. And so I felt like, okay, let me do what I think business people need to do. And I just found myself in like either networking groups or situations, and did that for a little bit, and it just didn't feel right. And then I got lumped in with, oh, you're an insurance person. Okay, let me lump you in here with the Aflac guy and the State Farm guy and all that. I'm like, no. And so I wanted to say, this isn't. So I've felt it's been a little bumpy, like finding my identity in the midst of this. And when I realized, no, this is my ministry, and like I don't need to go do like these secular networking events necessarily. I may try to go back to some and just to get more exposure to people, but um I think it's focusing in on who are your people. And it is the homeschool community. It is people who follow after the Lord wholeheartedly. Those uh I scuba dive, so scuba diving people, missionary people, people that go on missions and do ministry. Worked a lot in the anti-sex trafficking world also. And so just those are like my people. We speak the same language. We can talk about infinite banking and talk about scripture in the Bible, and what are you praying about, and all of that. So that's been my professional journey, just finding my identity, because I didn't come from a professional background initially necessarily, just kind of coming out of housewife slash ministry uh, life.
So you and I know each other then. Here's where the dots connect between us because of Bruce Wayner from the Money Advantage. We're both part of an IBC mastermind group. So how did you get connected with Bruce or the Money Advantage or anybody that's maybe in that mastermind that I also know? How did that happen?
Yes, our friend that we both care about and love, Becca, who's wonderful. She actually invited me to it because Bruce was her mentor in the infinite banking practitioner program. Met Becca the first think tank I went to when I wasn't a practitioner yet, but met her. We're both from Texas. She's way west. I'm just south of Houston, but hey, we're Texas people, so we identify with each other. And so just met her, and another good friend of hers that was there with her, Mark, and we just had some great conversations. She used to be a worship leader in church, so we connected on that level. And then the infinite banking level, she has been just the biggest blessing I could have ever asked for in my journey in the infinite banking concept. So she
Awesome.
reached out one day and said, hey, we have this group that meets on Tuesday. Would you be interested? And I'm like, yes, I'm hungry for any mentorship or, camaraderie that I can get my hands on. So she invited me to the group, and yeah.
Awesome. So, but if I heard you right, you didn't know Becca prior to the think tank. So y'all just connected at the think tank.
Yeah.
See there, that's another great reason. That's another great story for the think tank because of what it's facilitating in that regard. Not just codifying Nelson's Nash I don't think I said that right. Not just codifying Nelson Nash's message in perpetuity, but facilitating connections like that. I mean, because, you jumped in the way that you jump in on things, which I love. Sometimes I certainly think and feel like I'm a dog and all I see is the ball or the bone or the squirrel or whatever too. But y'all didn't know each other prior to the think tank, and because the think tank was there, you were able to get connected. And I've interviewed, Becca multiple times. She's been on the channel. Mark, I recently recorded a conversation with him as well. So for anybody that is listening, you should, by the time of this recording release, you should be able to hear that interview with Mark Leach from Texas as well. So everybody that's been mentioned so far has been introduced at some level. Okay, well, that brings us kind of up to date, I suppose, because we both know each other through the mastermind group. So how long have you been part of that mastermind group?
Let's see, since probably September, October of 2023.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, is if you went to the think tank in 2023, then yeah, closing in on 2 years even. Okay, awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
So let me ask you, Jesse, do you have plans or intentions on going through the practitioner program?
Right. Same question that you asked me on the phone the other day when we were first talking, because you were surprised that I was not already an authorized practitioner. And I could understand your surprise, because I was invited to the IBC Mastermind by Bruce, him knowing that I'm not yet. But so the answer is yes. The answer is yes, I want to. I regret not having personally met Nelson, because he was still alive in 2015 when I was exposed to the idea, but I was just so busy in life, I didn't have the wherewithal at the time to say, hey, I could actually go meet this guy quick enough, soon enough. So I wish that I could have even done that. But I certainly try to give honor where it's due. Don't claim anything as my own other than, the way and the voice that I have of sharing the message to people that they could implement infinite banking as well. They could live and leave a lasting legacy. So I'm thankful for what the Nelson Nash Institute is doing at all levels. Content-wise, I love it like you. Like lies. I love everything that they're doing in releasing content, of Nelson himself, or at least people that personally knew him, like Carlos and Bob and David and everybody. So yes, I do aspire. I like to say that I'm currently, or hitherto, have done the blue-collared work of sharing the concept that you could become your own banker. But now that the Nelson Nash Institute is so, uniform and collaborative, I want to. So that's where I'm at now. Haven't done it. Life is busy. That's nothing new to anybody, I'm sure. But I love everything that they're doing.
Yeah, well, you're walking the walk and talking the talk. So, I mean, I consider you a fellow, person in the IBC world, whether you are an official practitioner or not.
I appreciate that. It does mean a lot to me, and I don't know, I'm having a thought here that I've had before. I've had this feeling before, and you get it from Nelson's life story. You get it from Nelson's story that the idea of a top-down approach to anything can be problematic. Infinite banking in and of itself is privatizing banking, which means a layperson, like he says at the very beginning of his book, this is for people. It's not a sales tactic. It's not a sales tool. It's not about investments. This is about the idea that a person could be their own banker. That's what it actually is. But I understand too that the think tank has evolved into the Nelson Nash Institute as well. So yeah, I'm trying to do things the best way I know how, giving honor where it's due, and just telling people that I've been on this journey for going on 10 years now, and that they could implement it as well. Yeah, that's where I'm at to date. I want to go through the program, just if nothing else to not to check the box, but because I do feel the desire to do it well. Does that make sense? I do actually, not just on the channel and in my own personal implementation, giving credit to Nelson and the Institute, but check the box for my own integrity's sake, I guess, if that makes, all while still recognizing that, we've done what we've done without that also, right? Like there was a time when there wasn't a practitioner program. There was a time where there wasn't, these mastermind groups from people who personally knew and worked with Nelson that are facilitating conversations like what you and I get to enjoy and participate in every week as well. Like it's all true at the same time. All right. That's my answer. Do you have any other questions for me? I want to be an open book with you as well. I'm trying to share my heart with you.
No, I've loved our time together, and I'm happy to come on again. So
Oh, well, thank you for not even making me ask it, because I was going to do that. All right, so let's do this then. You are a professional in this space, so let's tell people where they can find you out, or how they can best reach you.
yeah, at Kingdom Money Sense, YouTube. I have a website, TikTok. Not too much on there yet, but we're getting there. Launching kind of the social media aspect. We started on that about a month ago, so we're starting to launch our social media out there to reach more people. So I think I've built that foundation of who I am in this space, what I bring to the table, who I want to work with. And so if you're interested, if anything I've said on this podcast, has struck you and you've connected in some sort of way, you can go to kingdommoneysense.com or on YouTube or TikTok and Facebook. And I'm on Facebook. So
Fantastic. All the places. Look for Nicole there.
I guess I'm not Instagram yet. I need that.
There you go. There you go. Let's do that. So I'll go ahead and put rubber to the road when it comes to you coming on, and I'm getting ready to step over into these rapid fire questions. I'm excited about this. I've already taken 2 questions out just because of things that you've said, and I'm not even going to say any more about it just yet because I don't want to spoil the questions that I will ask. But people know where to find you now. You've already offered to come back on here. Great, because I've already written down a particular topic that I know you'll have a lot of value to bring to the round table, because that's what I want to do. I want you to come to a round table discussion with me. I don't know if you've seen that particular series on my channel yet. I've launched a round table, and I want you to sit in on a particular conversation. I know I'm not going to tell you what the topic is, and it's not because I'm necessarily trying to dangle the carrot, but I want to get your organic, raw feedback. And I think you'll really enjoy that particular subject. So let's do that. Nicole's going to show up to a future roundtable episode. And for anybody that's not seen that particular series, go check that out. It's a lot of fun, having lots of professionals. And we might have other guests, of course, showing up for really neat things. All right. Are you ready for these rapid fire questions? What is a recent favorite book or podcast?
Having to do with infinite banking or just
Anything.
Oh, okay. So we are reading a series of books from J.E. Ribby. Okay, and there are a couple, Joel and Esther Ribby, J.E. Ribby, and they have a series on the Revolutionary War. And it's written in, so we're going to be starting book 4. And it just is great historical fiction following actually 4 children through the Revolutionary War on the side of the rebels or Continentals. It gives great historical facts with a fictional story of this. family going through, and
Awesome.
really brings to light the cost that was paid for our freedom in this nation. And so I'm really enjoying that book.
Awesome. I love it.
In my own personal reading, I've been assimilating more autobiographies, and that's another way for me to have gotten in history from, the actual person's perspective. So when you were talking about history earlier, I was with you for sure. What is one of your favorite all-time quotes? Quotes or sayings?
Okay. There are a lot, and I would say they're mostly scriptural.
That's fine. I feel like we go through seasons. People that are interested in Scripture or in the Word, seems like maybe a Scripture speaks to you for a time. That's been my experience, that one sticks with me for a certain season of life. So tell us what one of those might be for you then.
You were in Joshua, you said today. So as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
I love it. I love it. Okay, what's one of the most impactful things someone ever told you?
Oh, I don't want to cry, but it's you are worthy. Yeah.
I love that. What's one of your go-to healthy habits?
Go-to healthy habits. I started juicing. So I make a carrot, apple, ginger, turmeric, honey, a little bit of lemon juice in the morning. So started doing that.
Fantastic. Well, we're in the winter in North Carolina, so we at home have been taking certain juices, concoctions in the morning as well. Okay, awesome. Juicing. Love it. What's a bad habit you've ever broken?
Okay. So many.
Well, I'm not looking for a confessional, but you could just pick one if you want.
I had kind of a sweet tea addiction at one point. I love, we're from Texas. We love sweet tea. Sweet tea is really good, but it had gotten out of hand, and I was drinking, a lot. So I had to lay that down for a season, and now it's just occasionally, not drinking it all day, every day. And so that was a habit I broke.
Awesome. Yeah, I use sweet tea as an example for clients or prospective clients sometimes, Nicole, because same thing. I mean, when we were sitting down at the dinner table, the lunch table, the supper table, sweet tea. I mean, we had milk or juice in the morning, but for everything else, sweet tea, right? And I always tell people that, well, why did I drink sweet tea? Because that's how I'd been taught, right? So just rethinking your thinking, that's a principle, from infinite banking. Well, I don't know. I just reached a time in life where I was like, but why? Right? Like questioning, why? Or should I? Or is it too much, like you're saying? So good for you. I did the same thing. I don't drink it now. I am drinking my coffee this morning. That's that. But I'm intentionally doing it. All right. Sunrise or sunset?
Ooh, sunrise on the beach.
See, that's typically one of my questions. Okay. All right. See there, you're telling me. See,
I'm originally from right outside Miami, so I'm like East Coast girl. Sunrise.
Okay. So does that also maybe then contribute to your love of, because you mentioned scuba diving earlier also too, didn't you?
My dad was an avid scuba diver, did that in the Army in World War II before SEALs were SEALs. And so, yeah, I was having scuba gear on. I was young, so learned to swim before I could walk. Love everything water, ocean. Yeah.
Neat. So I'm trying to remember if UDT, was that the term for the guys that were before the SEALs? I don't know if that rings a bell to you. They had a name or a term as well. UDT, underwater demolition training. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, typically I ask the beach or mountains question, but I didn't decide to ask you because you'd already said scuba diving, beach.
Yeah, for sure, beach all the way. I enjoyed some snow skiing too, but if you gave me the choice, beach all the way.
Okay. How about this one then? Picnic or restaurant?
Ooh, oh, yeah, restaurant. I think restaurant.
Fire pit or movie night?
Fire pit.
What's the most interesting place you've ever visited? You talked about being in other countries. What's the most interesting? It doesn't have to be another country, but what's the most interesting place?
Israel. I went scuba diving in the Red Sea last year.
You mean you didn't just part the water so you could go down there and look around?
I did. Put on scuba gear, went scuba diving. And the kids did ask me when I got home, did you see like chariots or like dead people down there? Like, no, I didn't see any chariots or dead Egyptians.
That's so funny. All right, I think the typical last question that I ask that I got from my boys. We were sitting around the dinner table and they were asking me these questions. Dad, would you rather this or that? Rather this, rather that? And I was so inspired by it. I think I know your answer, but I'll still ask it to you because I like this one as the last one. Would you rather be able to breathe underwater or fly?
Breathe underwater all day.
Right. It was too easy for you. It was too easy for you. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate this time again with you, Nicole. For me, it felt like being on the phone again, except we get to see each other and you filled in a lot of gaps and answered a lot of questions that I just wanted to know more about you. Thanks for, saying that you'd come on future episodes. I think you're really going to like that topic that I want you to weigh in on when it comes to sitting in on a roundtable episode in the future. But do you have any parting words for everybody?
Just thank you for watching. And I just feel honored that to be on here. I would say if you're having any thoughts, if you've come across this video and it's something you're contemplating, I just start. I think that's something we talk about. If you're saying, I think I have the money, reaching out to someone, reaching out to Jesse, reaching out to myself, we can help look at your total picture because this just doesn't affect one aspect of your life. It affects literally your entire life. And so what does it hurt? It doesn't hurt. Just reach out and schedule something and start the research. Put in the effort and you can literally change your life. I know it's changed mine.
The analogy that you put in my mind, just because we talk about scuba so much, is that, it probably is helpful for somebody to have a coach, an instructor, somebody who's going to get in the water with them, right? And how valuable is it for there to be somebody there beside you to say, well, hey, you're leaking air right here. That's going to be a problem for you, right? As coaches, in this infinite banking space, we look for those money leaks, those inefficiencies, right? So awesome. Thanks again for being on here, Nicole. It's definitely been a pleasure for me. I'm looking forward to next time, okay? Awesome. Well, that was an absolute pleasure for me to have Nicole on the channel for the first time. She's already committed to a future episode. Be on the lookout for that. Her contact information will be in the show notes below. If you'd like to have a discussion with me about living and leaving a lasting legacy, you can find me at durhamtalents.com. This has been a great pleasure for me. Hope you have a great day. Take care.
Will you give me the subject of the round table prior to having me on the round? Can I do some sort of preparation?
I don't want to tell you no. I have debated about whether to do that. I'm undecided. Okay. So far, I guess I've just teased because there's one other person who has been on, and she's been on the channel before. Her name's Robin Washington. Incredible lady. You'd love her because she has really done something cool with infinite banking in her personal life. 5 generations? Is that what they've done? Because her parents are still living, but she's a grandmother herself, so that leaves her children, and then those children, grandchildren of hers, even to have policies. So the death benefit's technically going to the 5th generation.
Right.
I mean, just so neat, right? You'd love her. She's somebody else that's come to mind also for particular subjects, and I've not told her yet. So I guess I'm saying, if I told you, I'd have to tell her, and maybe it would change things, maybe it wouldn't. You're going to be comfortable talking about it. I'll tell you that much. It's not going to be weird. It's not going to be bothersome. You're going to be excited. I know you will be, just because of the theme that it is. It'd be something that you'd jump right in on. I don't want to tell you no just because you ask.
You can say
but
I'm okay.
I also think there's something valuable about capturing people's organic perspective when it's introduced. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. It totally does.
So I'm saying, if you pressed me, I would tell you, because I want to be accommodating in that way. But I also could just see us, sitting around a fire pit,
Yeah.
having a discussion about things and having a good time. That's what I envision